Welcome to all of you joining for this afternoon's TBC webinar, the new battle for the inbox with Kirk Bentley from Wordfly. We're just seeing everyone join now. There's about 250 of you joining today, so it takes a little while for everyone to get in, get settled. So we'll be underway just after 4 o'clock. If you haven't already seen, busy week this week, big one tomorrow, probably most popular one of week 3. Francesca from Baker Richards talking about pricing strategies specifically around reopening of venues, which a lot of you are now thinking or planning to do. Ashman had a run through with him this afternoon on his session on Thursday, what to do now, what to do next in terms of digital strategy. That's Thursday. And then a very popular session on Friday with Hugh, basically looking at kind of some of the things we can learn from Netflix and Amazon, what they've been up to. Can we take and steal some of those ideas when we welcome audiences back? So that's coming up later this week. We will be underway shortly with Kirk from Wordfly, just we've had a few more of you join. So welcome, and we'll be underway shortly. Hi there folks, it's just after 4 o'clock here in the UK, so I think we'll make a start with this afternoon's webinar with Kirk Bentley from Wordfly. I can see a few of you still just joining, but we all like to get off on time, so we'll get underway now. This week we had a bank holiday in the UK yesterday and Memorial Day in the US, so it's our first one of the week. If you haven't been on one of these before, we run a pretty structured format, a bit of housekeeping. Will be about 45 to 60 minutes today, depending on Q&A. That's me at the top there, Andrew Thomas from Ticking Professionals, and that's Kirk underneath, who you'll hear from shortly. We're recording today's session, so if you have childcare, dog care, cat care, any kind of care issues, need to get away, the session will be available later on demand on the website and on our YouTube channel. Pretty simple format, but presentation from Kirk, probably some discussion of some points. I might disagree with him on a few things, and then into some Q&A. And it's really great to have Kirk here. He was one of the many speakers we had lined up to come to TPC in Birmingham back in March. He was actually one of the first people to say, I don't think I'll be able to make it, because Seattle were hit pretty hard with COVID. So Kirk is there 8 a.m. in Seattle time. If you do have any questions for Kirk, please do head to the Q&A box. You'll find it at the top or the bottom of your screen. Hit that, put a question in. You can give them a thumbs up, ones you like and see, to get to the top of the pile for Kirk's Q&A. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to hopefully a caffeinated Mr. Kirk Bentley in Seattle. Kirk, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I just had a cup of coffee.
Brilliant. Well, over to you, sir.
Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me wherever you are in the world. Yes, as Andrew said, it's 8 a.m. here in Seattle. And like many of you, probably all of you, I've been on lockdown for many number of weeks. And yeah, you know, we're starting to see maybe the beginnings of people talking about opening museums here and there. I think in the States we've got just a couple that are opening, and next month I'll be doing a little session on the Wordfly channel talking about some ideas related to that. So stay tuned for that. Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about email and what's been going on in the email world. As many of you guys know, I've been doing, you know, marketing for the arts and entertainment business for most of my career, and really specifically email marketing for about the last 15 years, working with around 600 or so organizations around the world. So we've seen a lot of things in the email industry change recently. And Andrew and I thought it would be an interesting idea to just kind of walk through, some of the things that we've been seeing, some of the tactics, strategies, design considerations that you might start thinking about if you haven't already. Most of you, I'm assuming at this point, are well into your closure, and so hopefully you've already considered some of these things. But maybe this will give you some new ideas, and start thinking about ways of engaging people. If you're one of the organizations that won't be opening anytime soon, you're in this for the long haul. And so, like my slide here shows, we started the year 2020. And it did really seem like a year of limitless possibilities, I think, for all of us as we all start off the year thinking that way. And now, it's converted to this, right? It's at home studios. Everything's canceled. All the performances are off the table. Hopefully, you've already done the really hard, painful work of messaging for that. It's not easy, and there were a lot of interesting examples of that as well. But I think, today what we're going to be looking at really is the content, and how you engage people in that inbox is really become the new challenge. So we'll be spending some time today looking at a lot of really great examples, and of course then answering questions at the end. So, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, this really has just become all about content. It doesn't matter who you are in the organization, or what type of venue or ticketed venue or service you're running. It's all about content. Even if you have a simple Zoom meeting now, you are the expectation is that you've got some kind of content behind you. This is just a normal team meeting every day at Wordfly, and there we've got a rear window background. There I am in the recording studio, not my real one, unfortunately. People in costumes, people with memes, people with arcades behind them. All of a sudden, everything you do, every message, every moment that you're broadcasting to somebody, that you're messaging to somebody, has got to have engaging content. And most of us are spending all day in front of a screen where our inbox is front and center. Now, maybe that might not be entirely different, but when people are at home, they have access a lot more easily to their various different inboxes. So, maybe whereas they're in the office, they're mostly checking their work email. Now at home, nobody's watching. They can check out their Gmail inbox a little bit more easily, their Yahoo or whatever it is. So you're probably getting a few more eyeballs and a little bit more engagement, and so you need to capitalize on that. And while social has, I think, really, especially for the arts and culture segment, it really started off as the place to be because of all the things that social is so good with, right? It was fast, it was immediate, it was community focused. There were lots of, I think, really helpful hashtags like, hashtag museum at home, which is still going on. So social was really where I think things started and where people were really starting to engage here with each other. I don't know why my slide keeps going back to that. Sorry about that. But I think, what we've seen recently is that that email sign up and that inbox, as usual, social quickly becomes overwhelming for people, and it quickly becomes something that they can't keep up with a lot of the time. Everybody floods to social. Everyone floods those hashtags. There's all kinds of, suddenly there's garbage and spam and, messages that you don't care about. And so all of a sudden, people started returning to that inbox to find the real information. And I think you'll see, even as someone like South Bank, who's now talking about potentially being closed until a year from now, email is obviously going to be really critical to their communication plan and their success going forward. So email is still a really strong channel for you. If you're a marketer out there and you're thinking, oh yeah, well, we don't really need to focus on this too much, I urge you to reconsider that. First of all, this is a completely personal channel. You have got that key piece, that key transactional element that somebody gave you, that currency, which is the email address. That is so important. It's so much more personal than social media or any other type of channel. So to have that they've given that to you means something critical. They've given you that permission. So make sure that you act on that. What I like, some other things about that we've seen is that it's so savable and searchable. People these days aren't, really clearing out their inboxes as much, so they're just saving all these emails. So if you've got important communication, people are coming back to that. They're just searching their inbox, finding that old email from you and bringing it back up. So it's savable, it's searchable, it connects all your channels, I think you'll see. It's also very conveniently connected to their calendar. And when you are promoting digital events, that calendar becomes hugely important, because all of a sudden when Zoom is your venue, it's easy for people to forget. Obviously when you go to a real live venue, that's a moment, that's an event, and a big event. People meet for drinks beforehand, they go to the venue, but when it's just it's a digital event, that's a different sort of thing, and people forget. So having that connection to their calendar is a big piece that email offers. And just some other things, it's a little less noisy. Again, what I always love, it's a monologue, right? So you don't have all that, all those comments, all those other people talking over you. You can really get your message directly to your recipient, clearly. And then, it also has that transactional feel. So, that's the other thing that email is just so strong about, is that it just feels like the official message channel, whereas social doesn't always feel that way. I think if, you are obviously going to put your important messages up there just to get the sheer breadth of delivery that you can get through that medium. But email really has that wonderful transactional quality, that officialness, that it does so well. And then, yeah, just remember, these are your people. A hashtag are not necessarily your people, the people that gave you their email address. These are really your fans. So I think it's critical that you keep engaging with them in a really strong way on email. And so that's what we're going to look at today. Some great examples of that engagement. Before you do any of this stuff, before you make any crazy changes, just remember, before you pull the plug on your whole email program, if if you're thinking about doing that, just remember, whatever system you're using, you may have automations set up, so you may not want to, destroy or turn off all of those automations right away. So just think about that. There may be some things you just want to re-message and change the messaging and keep those automations going. Think about, what those standard emailings are. Perform an audit, meet with your team. What do you need to, pull off the calendar, and what do you need to change? Remember, there might be some new preferences during this time. So perhaps, you're starting, as we'll see later, like a family newsletter that you've never had before. Well, that's probably a new preference you're going to want to get permission for. So you're going to need to think about, the local laws and regulations in your area, and think about how those preferences and all that sign up works. So just remember a few of these different things. Post-event surveys are huge right now. So, people want to find out how engaging you find these events. Did you like the online gala? Did you like the event, the way it, was set up? So a few things to think about before you dive in here. All right, so one thing to consider, I think, with going forward in this new time, whether you're about to open soon or not, I think it's definitely going to be at least a few more weeks before most of us, think about opening our doors. Tell subscribers how to connect. And here's an email I really like from the Paramount Theater that, just did did this really well. So on the left, you can see the full email. Kind of sliced it in half there, but you can see the full email there. Oh my gosh, what's going on here? Hang on a second. There we go. So on the left, you can see the complete email there that kind of walks you through all the different ways that you can connect. And then right on top, 6 ways, just called out 6 ways to connect with us. So very clear, very easy. Just remind people, how they can still hear from you, how they can connect to you. There's a lot of, different ways that organizations are communicating right now. So just make sure that, folks, that you remind people exactly how you're going to be connecting with them. So this is one way to kind of set the stage for people. I love the way they've divided up this email too. It's just a really good looking example, I think, of that sort of quick bite of information. This looks great on a mobile phone too. So speaking of mobile, here's another organization that's done the kind of the same thing, Pacific Northwest Ballet. And I just love how they've divided this up here, and it's really engaging on that email. I think your thumb just naturally wants to click on that, on those big buttons. But P&B here is just saying, take a break. You've been overwhelmed with news, there's event cancellations, there's so much going on. And so, this is their attempt to just kind of engage you by taking a stress break. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. And, if you look at what they've pulled together here in terms of their content, it's tremendous. These marketers are probably working harder than ever to put together all of this content. It's a huge amount of work, to put together a book club and a movie club and podcasts, and think about ways that people can exercise and follow you on Instagram, how they can create with you. So these marketers at P&B are working quadruple time to not just create these ideas, but actually execute on the content and build all this stuff out, and then announce it in this gorgeous email. So this is a couple of great examples of just explaining right off the bat to people how they can engage with your organization and that you're still there. And I think it's really up to the marketer right now to make sure that your voice is loud and clear, and that your messaging early and often. I think people ask me how much should they be emailing right now. Minimum double what you used to. It's just, you have got to be present in that inbox. It's tougher than ever right now, and you're creating new kinds of content and new messaging. It's not just about pitching your events. Now you've got to have a whole nother way to engage with the organization. So that's unusual for people, and you're going to need to message that reliably. Another cool idea that we've seen with everyone doing childcare at home is to start a family newsletter. So one of my favorite organizations in the UK, Royal Academy, has done this same thing. And you can call that right out in your main email. So first of all, just a great looking email here. You can tour the exhibit. They've also got this little get creative part on the second panel. So they've got a doodle challenge. They're promoting their podcasts as well. But this family newsletter is a great way to just really appeal to the parents at home that are, kids are driving them crazy. They need something to do. They're always looking for some activity. And this has been a great way for RA to really engage in maybe a different way than they had before. Even though it's an educational facility and a venue at its heart, this is a great way to reach out through the newsletter and create kind of a whole new topic and a whole new way to engage. So one idea to throw at you guys there, if you're not doing this and you're looking for ways to engage, start a family newsletter and start a program. Obviously, it's going to have to be bigger than the newsletter, but start a program for families and help them engage. Portland Children's Museum does a really nice job of this. A lot of fun. This is really fun newsletter. It's got this animated GIF in here. They even tell you how to make this thing. So they just really clearly call that out. It's really fun. Obviously, a kid could read this. It's simple language. It's easy to read. So another nice example, if you're looking for ways to engage, here's the way to do it. So neat stuff there. I'm just kind of staring at that animated GIF. Kind of fun. Another consideration. And so this is a big one, and this is what we've seen a lot of organizations do, is basically push pause on all of their regular email program and replace it with something called an intermission or an at-home email. So you're seeing a lot of this, arts at home, theater at home, that type of thing. So what we're going to do now is look at several examples of kind of that tactic. I think it's been so popular and so many folks have done it so well that I think it's important to kind of call this out. So a couple of things to look at here on the Seattle rep email. There's a lot going on. Obviously, first, this amazing animated GIF they've got. So I had the chance, we got this email and I sat down with the folks at the Seattle rep over Zoom, of course, not over coffee, unfortunately. But we had a nice little chat, and basically, yeah, they just, recorded the screen and, they kind of stitched this little thing together. But I thought this first email was just so much fun. This first edition of kind of how they put this together, and I thought it was really fun the way they introduced the team, introduced the staff, really connected with all of us. All of us are likely spending way more time on Zoom than we ever thought we did, and that's that's an image that resonates with people right there. All those little Brady Bunch boxes. Over on the left, you can see they've done a lot here, and we're just going to kind of dive in a little bit deeper so you can get a closer look. So first of all, they're introducing the team in that GIF. They're also introducing the team and who you're going to be hearing from over the next several weeks, because that's what they did. They said, okay, we're going to set up this new intermission newsletter. And these are your new curators. The staff is now going to be your guide to the Seattle rep. And we're going to step into a new role and talk to you about our organization, talk to you about our performers and our craftspeople and all the things that go on behind the scenes that you may not see. So they've got a nice call out here, and this is part of their whole new web design that they've launched here, which they've kind of plugged into the email, which I love. So even though that looks a little bit different than the rest of the email, it makes sense in context of the rest of the digital properties that they have. So, yeah, just a little information about, what the rep staff are listening to, what they're reading, what they're watching. We've got some recipes. We've got, crafts from home. Support local. The other thing that they told me they're doing here, which I think is so cool, is this has been an absolute unmitigated disaster for the thriving restaurant scene in Seattle. We've got an amazing restaurant scene here with all kinds of celebrity chefs and just fantastic food, and it's been a disaster. So the rep, is nearby a lot of these restaurants, so they've partnered with several of them, so you can go and kind of like support them, get special meals, go pick something up. So they're trying to partner with other local businesses in their area just to kind of pull the community together, which I thought was another smart idea. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, they've got some recipes. They've got this dressed apart thing, which I think a lot of you have probably seen this. I just thought this was so fun, just imitating famous scenes from stage and screen. Really well done here. And then, of course, introducing their pets, right? A lot of us have pets at home. I have a new dog. Well, he's not new, but he's a year old. His name's Baxter. He's a total handful. So hopefully he won't bark during our session here, but you can see that, yeah, everyone's kind of introducing their pets and their family, just like we all are. And so I think they've just done a fantastic job of tearing down that veneer, of opening the curtains, shall we say, and letting people into the real heart of the Seattle rep with this email. It's very personal. And frankly, it's just fun. It's just it's a totally different, part of the rep that I've even, I've spent my whole life here and never seen. So we really enjoyed this. Thought it was a lot of fun, engaging email. Another Seattle organization, Seattle Opera, obviously hard hit by this. Just another tactic, I think another way to talk about this. And if you're out there thinking, Kirk, like there's a team of 1 or 2 people here, like we can't redo this whole thing. Great, no problem. This is for you then. This is very similar to the Seattle Opera's normal newsletter. So they're just keeping the same structure, using their same basic starter template, and just going in and kind of remodeling it with new content. So, if that's the case for you, if you don't have a ton of extra time to, if you're so busy creating content that this, email is kind of the last thing on your mind, That's all right. Just reuse an old template, just plug new content into an old design. And that's kind of what they've done here. And this works great. You know, they've got just a clear messaging at the top. This is Opera at Home, so we know what's going on. So it's really easy to make this kind of email. Here's another look from an organization down in Melbourne in Australia. The Australian Center for the Moving Image, ACMI. Absolutely stunning, gorgeous email. Love the look of this. They've done some really cool things with the content here. What I love is I think how they've really created a cinema look here within this email, and it's the Acme at Home. I think they've really done a good job of bringing the brand and the idea and the experience of visiting Acme into this email. So they've just done a nice job here, I think. And I think what the thing I really wanted to call out was their isolation guide, which I just thought was such a neat idea. Something that's definitely worth stealing. But they created this isolation guide about how to, enlighten yourself in lockdown. So something you might want to poke around if, you might want to visit their site and scope this out. But they've just done some, really nice, simple, clear design here. Talking about school holidays there, they've got some school holidays I think are just wrapping up. They've got workshops and things to read. So yeah, I think mostly for this, just a nice, clear, clean layout. Looks like something a little bit different. And then this guide is definitely something to take a look at. So another consideration, just bringing a little bit more of your social connections into your email. One of the things that we've often said about email is that it's sort of the connective tissue between all of your different channels, and it's the place where you can have that transactional official feel and kind of promote all of your other channels in a very clear way. The South Bank is doing so much right now. This is one thing I think they're really kind of nailing. Just on the bottom, in its simplest form, if you're looking for a very simple way to do this, they've left in their normal footer here. So the normal footer just has how to connect with them on social, right? But then they've added this much bigger chunk here in that second panel where you can join the conversation and get involved. So, again, if you're thinking, okay, yeah, I don't really have time to create a completely, socially focused email, that's okay. This is one way to do this. When social kind of first came on the scene, we saw a lot of this. Crazy that I'm talking about when social first came on the scene, that I've been in marketing that long. But when, Facebook was getting popularized, and even Instagram and Twitter, a lot of folks were making entire emails just to promote those channels. So, people would make a whole email that was just about Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and how to engage on that channel and what to do and what it was. So we're not seeing that so much. That sort of died off, I think, after everyone kind of got those properties up and running and really started to get traction on them. But you do want to keep people clued in as to what's going on those different channels and what specifically they can do there that they can't do in email. So if you're running different kinds of engagement plans over there, with people uploading images or people entering a contest, this is a great place to call that out. Remind people in your email about what's going on over there. The Shed Aquarium in Chicago. Maybe speaking of viral, speaking of social, maybe you guys heard about their viral hit, Wellington. Wellington is a penguin who lives at the Shed Aquarium, and I don't know if you saw this. I think this got like 3 million views on YouTube or something like that. Anyways, the Shed Aquarium lets the penguins roam around. Since they're closed, they let them get some exercise and just kind of walk around the aquarium. And if you haven't seen it, you got to go search for Wellington the penguin. Firstly, it's totally adorable. This little penguin and his buddies, they walk around the shed aquarium and they get entranced by what they're seeing, which is so fun because they're walking around this aquarium, and this little guy Wellington, he's seeing like these tropical fish, and he just can't stop looking at them. He must think they just look delicious. But they had amazing luck with this viral hit. It really took off, and Wellington, he found fame. He was all over the news. Everyone, promoted this thing. It was right when the shed had kind of, closed early on. So I'm not here suggesting you just go out and create a viral hit. Not possible. But what you can do is what they've done here, and just really promote in a big way what's going on in social. Maybe you don't have a viral hit like this, but maybe you've got a best of. Maybe there's a best of our Instagram from last week, or the best of our community, that shared images. Maybe you ask people when they go on their daily walk or something to share images of the city, or take pictures in front of the venue or something. Those are things you want to promote in your email. Get those out. Show people still engaging with your venue somehow. So yeah, I think this is really just about what happened on social, and how this whole thing took off. And I know it's simple, but I also love how they've taken their social buttons and put them on the top of the email. A lot of folks like the South Bank and many others do this. They put them in the bottom footer. For this, these guys throw this right on top. And it's because they've got so much engaging content on social. They really want that to be a focal point. So they do a lot on YouTube, on video. Obviously, this video was a big one. So they always put that right at the top of their email, which you don't see a lot, and I just think it's a neat idea. So check out the Shed Aquarium. Go check out that video. It was a lot of fun. Wellington, big hit. The High Museum in Atlanta, they are actually getting ready to open June, I think, or first week of June. So I'm going to be talking to the marketing team at the High Museum mid-June. So keep your eyes out for an announcement from me, chatting with those guys. We'll be talking specifically about, how the messaging changed, what they had to talk about, what they had to get in those emails to get their patrons and their subscribers ready to attend the museum. But in the meantime, what a beautiful email. Look at this, man. I mean, this just pops right off the page. This is fantastic. So, again, I want to point out, this doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be a groundbreaking change. For them, they just kind of threw in their social on that second panel. It just says "Stay Social" at the High Museum of Art, and they're just promoting that really quickly right there. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. They've still got it in the footer. Again, so you don't have to, if you don't have the time, or you're limited on resources like a lot of us are, at least just call it out somewhere and make sure that you're kind of pulling those different elements together. Honestly, this is really an excuse just to show off this really brilliant design. I just love the way they've set this up. It's just, bright and bold and simple to read. So neat stuff there from the High. Cool museum, and watch out for some more info coming from them later. Events and reminders. So obviously, events are something that we're all really accustomed to, talking about and emailing about. Reminders might be a little bit of a different thing, though. So first of all, what's going on at the Royal Albert Hall? They've just got some amazing stuff going on there, and the streaming stuff, they've been streaming some old concerts and things like that. It's just really been engaging, and they've had kind of a viral hit. I think as a lot of fans of rock and roll and music, or have realized, wow, Royal Albert Hall streaming all this amazing content. That gets people pretty excited, and I know that on a few of the threads that I'm on with some of my friends, whether it's on a messaging app or whatever, their name definitely came up. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Kirk, check this out. You can watch this concert and all this stuff." So they've got that going for them. I think some of the other thing that I like that they're doing here, though, is that, again, when you're just broadcasting digitally, it's really easy for people to forget. And so you can see on the second panel here with, those 3 acts. Well, actually, all the acts on that second panel, it just says remind me. So that's a way to get a reminder in YouTube. So think about that, if you've got a YouTube thing coming up, for example, Prince had his huge, 1985 concert that was recorded in upstate New York that broadcasted for the entire weekend last weekend in the States, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And yeah, you could set a reminder for that. There was all kinds of information. They came out in email. If you're a fan, they came out through social. And one of the things that they wanted to make sure you did was obviously subscribe to the channel, of course. So you should be promoting that, but also make sure you set a reminder so you don't forget about that. So that's a nice simple example of that for free events. And also, just making sure, again, just talking about those preferences and signups, they've done that here too. So, make sure that you keep that sign up form front and center. They're doing that here to make sure that you can stay up to date on all of these events. So they're just, they're pushing that out right there. So right on the web page, you can make sure that, people are staying up to date about this stuff. Another example for those guys, so this actually says watch at 1400, so you can actually either just put remind me or put that watch, but that's going to link over to YouTube and set up a little reminder so you get reminded. Speaking of just kind of calendars and events, these guys, I don't work with the Design Museum, but I do love the way they set up this email and how they created this digital design calendar. So these guys created a calendar, which I thought was a neat idea for maybe some of you guys. You could also create kind of a digital events calendar of all the stuff that's going on. Maybe that's on your website, or maybe you just create a little page or something. But just kind of a neat idea, the way they color coded all of their different events and all the things that are happening. So this is another way to engage people, I think, with the events that you're doing, is create some kind of calendar that people can save on their desktop, or save the link to. Another example of events, I think, is this is this is a way just to kind of keep people reminded. So this is an automated email. So the High Museum is still having events, and they're still using automation to remind people. So these just kick off, right out of Wordfly, and so this sends out a reminder that you've signed up for this conversation. Thank you, and it's pretty much just like any other event confirmation that you might get. So if it's if someone's going to a play or a symphony, right, they're going to get that automated reminder that they've got an upcoming performance to attend. Well, this is kind of the same thing. So they just like I said in the beginning, they didn't just pull the plug on all those automations. They looked at them carefully and thought, okay, which of these can we keep, what can we reuse, can we just plug in new content to these? And so that's what they did. Anyway, so kind of, just kind of a reminder there that, it doesn't all have to be through third-party apps, and these reminders. You can set up reminders, through your email system to have them kick off and remind people that way. Last couple of things to think about here. So, the inbox is always just, it's a battle for eyeballs, right? And attention. And I think, one of the things you got to keep doing is just keep sending and keep, making sure that you're there and you're present. Because if you're not there, someone's, just going to take your place. So one of the things to think about, we've seen a ton of this. Video has just taken off as kind of a huge element in emails. Almost every email we see has got some kind of engaging, or video or animated GIF in it. So think about how you're doing that. I know a lot of folks really want to engage on video and want to drive people to YouTube. A good way to do that is to get a video that moves in the email. It will really stand out. Not every retailer and every organization is doing this. So if you've got exciting movement, something that jumps out of the email inbox, it's going to help you engage a little bit more. It's going to help you get those conversions and get people over to the landing page. So just kind of think about when you're setting up these emails, plugging in a little bit more email. Obviously, Kennedy Center's got a ton there. This one on top, there's all kinds of videos laid out through here. So I just thought this is a really nice way that they just promoted those videos right at the top. And just as an aside, don't forget to promote your gift shop. This is a great time for people doing a little bit of online shopping. So if you've got an online shop, don't forget to throw that in the email, right? A couple of other fantastic examples of email in, sorry, a video in email. I thought this one from the Alliance Theater at the Woodruff Center, this is just fantastic. So, they're starting to monetize their digital streams. So, you can watch the Mole Rat, but it's a paid experience. So you got to pay for a few bucks, and it works basically like Amazon Prime. You can watch the video for, I think, 2 or 3 days. You've got access to it for 70 some hours. I think, when you're thinking about that kind of experience and creating some kind of online viewing experience, just like Amazon and Netflix, you need a preview. And that preview needs to be in the email. You need to show people that the quality is there. And I say that mostly because, most of us haven't been doing a lot of online streaming for a lot of different reasons. So people are not accustomed to the experience. They don't know what the quality is going to be. Is this just some guy sitting in a seat with a, with an iPhone filming this thing? Like, how does this work? So make sure that you're really clear and upfront about what an amazing experience this is, and put that video in an email. So this is not a video, obviously. That's just an animated GIF that's playing on repeat. But you can also, just do something simply like drop in, a YouTube button and just put that on top of something that, obviously clues people in that there's a video to watch there. So, if you don't know, email and video have not always played well together. So it's, it can be a little bit difficult to get video to play in every email client. So probably your best bet is just to link to YouTube and or use an animated GIF. Another great example, here's an animated GIF here from the Tate. Love this. So this is their creative email, just kind of showing a few different projects. And, I think there's just so much to love about this email. I think just its clarity, its brevity, it's very quirky and fun, and just, it just feels, like the Tate Museum. It's just a lot of fun, very modern. So the great example of engaging the whole family here, I think. Okay, well, that's going to wrap it up. It looks like we've got a few questions, so we can get to those. But I just want to give you some, some take-home ideas before we head into the Q&A. So, what we saw today, make it personal, introduce the team, get people inside the venue, tell them who you are, tell them who's going to be curating this journey over the next few weeks. Start introducing some people and hopefully make some new connections and some new friends. Introduce the staff, introduce their pets, add your partners. If you have restaurants or bars that are, not busy right now, is there some kind of partnership deal that you can do, that you can advertise? Can they get a cocktail and then come home and watch Mole Rat? Stuff like that works really well. Show people how to engage on social. What are you doing on social? Explain that thoroughly in the email. Share the hashtags. Some of those hashtags are huge right now. Arts at home, museum at home, all that stuff. So, I'm not discouraging you from using it, but they're crowded places. So make sure people know where you are. Introduce your virtual events and add reminders. Make sure that people can, add these events to their calendar. There's a couple of great apps out there that will let you put in a little add this to your calendar, so you can create a time and an event and people can just add that to their calendar. It doesn't really have to be connected to an event. So if you look at that, if you just search for add to calendar, you'll find a few different apps out there that let you do that and just inject that into an email. So that's a handy way. You want to make sure you get on people's calendar because they will forget to come back and watch your event. And then last couple of things, don't just pull the plug on all your automations. Think about how you might repurpose those and reuse those, and then engage with a lot of video and animation. The inbox is a crowded place. You guys should be really, like I say, doubling, your email volume right now. You should be sending a lot more email than you have been. So to do that, you want to engage with a lot of animation. If you need examples, we've set up the Museum of Modern Email. This is the world's first and only museum dedicated to the art and science of email marketing. This is examples from all over the world. Arts and culture venues are featured here only. So go check this out. Go to museumofmodernemail.com. You can see desktop versions. You can see mobile versions. You can download these emails. Tons and tons of examples up here right now. And right now we have a new special exhibit that we just announced that's called Arts at Home. So you can go and see a lot of the emails we looked at today, as well as many others, and see exactly what organizations out there are doing with email. So go check out Museum of Modern Email. Go check out our new exhibit, Arts at Home, to get some examples. Okay, lastly, during this pandemic, I've been wondering, what can I do specifically as a human being to help people? And that is to just share my knowledge and expertise of over 15 years of email marketing in the arts. And I am providing free 30-minute sessions. So if you would like to book time with me to talk about email marketing or your challenges or the opportunities that might be out there for your organization with email, I'm offering that for free. There's no hitch. I'm not going to try to sell you a condo or anything like that, a timeshare. So just shoot me an email and we'll pick it up from there, and I'll send you my calendar. Okay, that's it. So I am going to hand off back here, and we'll get some questions going.
Thank you, Kirk. Fascinating. I've got 4 or 5 things on my list already. The Q&A is coming along nicely. So if you go to the top or bottom of your screen, hit the Q&A box. We've got 5 or 6 questions in there already. You can give a thumbs up to questions you like, and they'll get to the top of the pile, and we'll try and get through those. Speaker's privilege. I've got a question I've got to ask, which is my question, before we get to the Q&A, Kirk, because we had Sam Biscoe on here a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about reopening venues and welcoming people back. And I just worry that the minute we say we're opening, we're going to get this tsunami of emails hit our inboxes. And how do we stand out rather than getting mixed up in that 500 messages I'm going to get on, next Tuesday or next Friday, depending on which country you live in, that stuff's opening? How do we stand out in those?
Always a challenge, right? I mean, it's the same thing. I think, in the States, for example, in the fall, that's normally our arts and entertainment season, and just a million inboxes are flooded with emails. It's the same thing during what we call Cyber Monday, or what is it, Black Friday. Our email volume at Wordfly quadruples the amount of email that's coming out of our system. So I think, for those things, you've just like good old fashioned marketing, you've got to have something compelling. And I think, for me on this, what I've seen is a very clear subject line. For example, the Museum of Fine Arts at Houston is opening, I think, next week, and their email I just got from them said, "We're reopening June 30th," right in the subject line. And that, to me, I thought was a really compelling subject line that got me to open that. Now, of course, they're first to the gate, so that's a compelling subject line. But I think doing those things that we talked about in this session, adding some animated GIFs, getting some video in there, there's no real way to rise to the top. So you've got to just prime people to go look for that email. And you can also use those other channels to drive people back to the email. Use social, use YouTube, make sure people know that, let's say, quote, there's a special email coming about our reopening, make sure you go find it. You know, and maybe there's a special promo code in there that gets them a discount or something like that. So I think you're not going to have too much trouble. The people that are signed up for your email program are your super fans. They're waiting for you to open, and they're probably more concerned about what the experience is going to be like. Do they need to wear gloves? Do they need a mask? What do they need to bring? Can they bring their kids? Can they bring grandpa? Those are probably the things that people right now are, I think, most concerned with, and a lot of that organizations I've talked to are most concerned with communicating.
Superb, superb. Thanks for that. Now, we've got a bit of tradition here, which we never go to the top rated question. So we're going to go to number 2. And Billy, and Billy's question kind of leads on from that, what you were just talking about there. And Billy asks, how much weight would you put against the subject or title of the email versus the content? Any suggestions of the words or tone, voice and emojis, etc., that are returning higher engagement or open rates?
Yeah. Oh boy, it's such a good question. It's a tough call. You know, subject lines are tricky, and they require a little bit of experimentation, I think. You know, and hopefully, you know, your system lets you A/B test a couple of different subject lines, so you can try a couple of different ones out. You know, what I find is, I think generally I tend to like, you know, I'll experiment with a lot of different stuff, and then I'll play off. I'll see what the rest of my team thinks, but generally I will create a couple of different subject lines, or at least 3 or 4 that are, some are really short, some are really long, and then send it to yourself and send it to your team and see what people respond to just internally most. So I think, you know, generally I prefer, like, you know, the evidence shows that the studies show that subject lines with less than 10 characters and over 50 perform the best. Okay, so if you've got less than 10 or over 50, those are your higher performing subject lines. In the middle, you know, there's not so much evidence that those do as well. So I tend to go for something shorter and snappier, and then put extra content in the pre-header, which is that third line that you see on the mobile phone. So on your phone, you've got the from name, you've got the subject line, and then the phone will publish the first part of the content that's in the email, and you can customize that. A lot of times, unfortunately, people leave it and it just says, can't read this email, or view on the web. Make sure you get that out of there and put something else in there that's prime real estate that you should make use of.
Super. Thanks for that. Billy, Lucy, top rated question. And she says, we have seen our creative at home emails, their open rates drop a lot since we started in early April. We're testing out to find out why, but do you know any tactics or research that you think in terms of subject, which we just talked about, or time of day to cut through the noise? And a few other people have chipped in there where they've also seen a drop off. So anything on time, we kind of covered the subject with Billy's question, but anything on time or weekday?
Yeah, boy, time's a tricky one. You know, there's no great evidence, you know, scientifically, on the studies that have been done, that any time is really better than any other. You know, for us, on our system, we know for a fact that the most amount of people send email on Thursdays. That seems to be Thursday morning, and Thursday afternoon seem to be the key times when people send the most email. We tend to think, unscientifically, that is because that's, you know, most marketers start their week on Monday, and they try to, you know, get everything done by Friday, and so they send everything out on Thursday. So we think that's an unscientific reason for that. I think, you know, the reason things have dropped off is quite simply, I think that, you know, people have gotten bored with being inside. You know, when this first happened, people were very optimistic and thought, this is great. I'm going to teach my kid about art and science and fun and theater, and we're going to, you know, there's all these great resources out there. Well, the shine is off, isn't it? And now, you know, it's turned into a big struggle and a hassle, and the kids are bored, and, you know, so I think, you know, we're all seeing a little bit of frustration from our subscribers. So I don't have any great advice for you other than to test different times. So try sending it early, try sending it midday, try sending it late, see if anything increases. Try different things in that subject line, experiment with emojis, experiment with different subject lines. Experiment with sale offers, or whatever you can. Do some experimentation in that subject line. Emojis will definitely get you a bump. So if you're not using those now, drop in some emojis. You'll at least get a 1 or 2 week bump until the novelty wears off. But just like everything else, the novelty on these things wears off, and then people are bored with it again. So you've always got to come up with some, fun, unique little thing to do. So yeah, unfortunately, there's no great advice on that other than just test and play around and see what gives you the best results, and then double down on it. And then people will, those numbers will even out, and you'll have to keep reinventing. And that is the curse of, unfortunately, all marketers.
Okay, thanks. We've got still got 5 to get through. So top of the pile at the moment. Yeah, and it's a common theme. It's anonymous, but it's saying completely agree that, with your point that we should kind of double down on staying in touch and emailing people, but they're wary of that art's not a priority right now for a lot of people. And where do you think the line is between being present and still in someone's life, and the sensitivity to the current situation? Where's the line in that curve?
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful question. And I think, I will say this, I've just been absolutely amazed at how much of a priority I think the arts have been during this time. And I think so many arts organizations have realized, and I've talked to so many of them who've told me, that they will continue, even after the pandemic is over, they will continue with an online and a digital streaming strategy, or some other strategies that they engaged with during this time, and even try to monetize some of those. So I'm not sure I agree that it hasn't been a priority. I think we've seen so many major organizations open their doors and provide incredible access to archives and 360 tours and all kinds of things. So, to me, and I don't say this as, the guy that's out there, selling an email marketing system. It doesn't really matter to us, if you send more email or not. But the reality is that the inbox is a very competitive place. So, I think often arts organizations think that they're sending too much email, but in reality, you're sending far, far less than any retail or shopping outlet would. Far, far less. There are many retail organizations I receive an email from 4 or 5 times a day. So I think you're okay sending, if you're thinking, 2 or 3 times a week is too much, you're going to be fine there. One last thing I'll mention is that, I did a case study with the Kennedy Center, and their studies proved that their donations actually increased when they doubled the amount of email they sent. So they doubled the revenue that they were making from email by, I think it was quadrupling the amount of email they sent over a 2-year period. So there's really not much evidence that I think you're going to annoy people. If you're worried about unsubscribes, you can always give people another option to say, click here to get fewer emails, or click here to change your preferences and hear less from us. So make sure you give people an out. You don't want to lose them. But if people get annoyed with your email, generally they don't unsubscribe. They just stop reading, or stop looking for a little while, and then they come back to you.
Okay. Thanks for that. 6 to get through. If you want to give a thumbs up to a question to make sure it gets answered, please do that. One from my good friend Keith in Ontario in Canada. He said, can you please offer 3 tips to increase the likelihood that emails make it to the inbox rather than their spam? So quick as you can, 3 tips to make it into the inbox and not spam.
Yep. Okay. So first of all, make sure, yeah, this gets a little technical, but so there are some things you can do. So some of them are technical, but a lot of it's just reputation based. So make sure that you give people the ability to unsubscribe whenever they want. Make sure you give people the ability to update their preferences whenever you want. Never hide the unsubscribe. Never sign people up that never email to people that have not signed up, of course. If you're emailing to people and those emails bounce back, you need to get those off your list, because that's going to hurt what's called your digital reputation with the email inboxes, and they will block you and send you to the spam. So if you keep sending to email like someone's Gmail, if you've got a lot of Gmail addresses that are bouncing back, they take that as a sign that you're a spammer and they will block you. So make sure you quit sending to emails that are bouncing back right away. The other thing is a technical thing you can do. Make sure that you publish what's called a DKIM record, DKIM. Talk to your email service provider about this, but that authenticates you as a safe sender. So make sure you go do that. It's DKIM. Go ask your email provider about that. So those are a few things that you can do. But really, getting into the inbox is a reputation, and it really has to do with you having a conversation with your email provider, finding out what they do to help you get into the inbox, and then you have a huge responsibility to make sure that you act day in and day out every day as a good sender.
Thanks for that. Personally with TPC, we were having a lot of people, even the emails I was sending people from my outlet going to spam. And then we did that deakin, which took a little bit of work with MailChimp and our domain host to get in place. And we saw an instant uplift straight away. And of course, we use double opt-in as well. So we see a much better delivery rate. Right, here we go. Quick as you can. With moving video previews and email, does it tend to have a noticeable effect on loading time, Kirk?
No, it won't. Because the way the video works in email is that you can't send an email in the video, or sorry, you can't send a video in the email itself. It's not possible. So all you're doing is really you're hosting, you're just pointing that video, and that's either hosted on YouTube or it's hosted on your website. So no, that's not, unless you have unless the image that is kind of your placeholder for that video is absolutely enormous, like over 2 megs or something, that will slow things down. So the thing that slows down the loading are giant images. So make sure your images are a lower res. Don't send high res or anything like that, because that'll screw up your email size, and then that'll get it, that can get it blocked, or it can get it chopped off in Gmail. Gmail sometimes says, we can't show you this whole email. Click here to see the whole thing. So if your email is over 115K, I think, then that's when Gmail will do that. It'll chop it off.
Did not know that. Okay, quick as you like. We'll get through the last 4 here. Claire Gulliver asks, does the from field affect opening rate, Kirk?
Does the from field affect opening rate? Only if you change your from name to something that people have no idea what it is. So in our application, you can set up as many from names as you want. But obviously, if you're routinely sending from your organization name, and then you change that, that's going to hurt you. Yeah. So it may not, hurt deliverability. It doesn't hurt your ability to get into the inbox. That doesn't matter, but it will affect your open and click rates.
I'm going to jump to one here that's caught my eye. It's down towards the bottom of the list, but Alex asks, my organization concerns a serious subject matter, the Holocaust. Our main struggle is getting new people to engage with this subject. Obviously, we can't be playful with our content, social, as other orgs and museums have no emojis, etc. Do you have any suggestions for less light-hearted subjects for digital engagement and emails?
Yeah.
Big topic, short amount of time, Kirk.
Big topic. I mean, I think this just comes out down to good old-fashioned marketing and thinking about, what's inside that email that's going to get people to click. I think with your subject matter, you're really talking about hitting, about inspiration and emotion and touching those deep feelings that people have. So, to me, I think obviously, yeah, you don't want to be lighthearted with that. You want to, touch on a different nerve there. So to me, that comes down to just good old fashioned copywriting and thinking about, what are the things that you can put in that subject line that are really going to touch that specific inspirational nerve that you want to touch.
Thank you, Kirk. Okay, 2 to go. An easy one here. Stefano, hello Stefano. He says, surprise, which email service do you suggest, Kirk? MailChimp or other common platform?
Well, I always suggest the platform that I work for, which is Wordfly, and I never suggest MailChimp. So yeah, but honestly, I mean, if you want to have a conversation with me about what we offer, that's great. I'd be happy to do that. But there's a million different email services out there, and they all have different features, and they're some are better than others. So yeah, shoot me an email. We could talk about it. I'm always happy to. We're not always the right solution for everybody, and I'd be happy to point you in the right direction if there's a better fit.
Brilliant. Okay, and we're going to finish off with Jim. We've got to the final one. Do you feel it's a wasted effort to still push autumn and winter, given that many people are not considering buying tickets for shows right now? So should we just be chopping up?
That's a tough call, right? I mean, I guess if you've canceled your season, like most of the organizations I'm working with are canceling their seasons that start in September and October, then yeah, obviously it's not, doesn't make any sense for you to spend time promoting events that aren't going to be happening. So it's time to pivot, like they say in the Silicon Valley, and time to pivot and start marketing something else. So yeah, I do think it would be wasted effort, obviously, if those events are canceled.
Okay, so that gets us to the end of our Q&A with Kirk. Kirk, thank you very much. We rattled through that in super quick time. Just a note to everyone who's still on, if you said yes in the sign up to this webinar for sharing Kirk's details, because we like a good clean opt-in, he will drop you a note with some resources and links to things he's talked about today. If not, head over onto @Wordfly on Twitter, and there'll be some resources up on there and Kirk's contact details. All that it remains to do is for me to give a good plug to Francesca tomorrow for her pricing one. It's really good. I had a run through that today. Her pricing webinar tomorrow. Ash on Thursday about digital, and then Hugh talking all things Netflix on Friday. Thank you very much, Kirk. I appreciate you getting up early. It's good to spend some time with you, if not in a bar somewhere.
You too. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Thank you all for joining. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys about this. And please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm a big email nerd. I'd love to hear what you guys are up against and see if I can help.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great afternoon or evening wherever you are in the world.
Thank you. Bye-bye.